Taylor Swift will revoke being godmother to Blake Lively's kids as pair's war goes nuclear after singer's engagement reveal.
I've been in the music industry for 20 years. It's
Yeah,
pretty hard
she's
to
a
hurt my
pro.
feelings at this point.
She's a pro from the beginning. I don't like the last thing I wanted to do is screw this up.
Yeah.
So I'm like, in my mind is like her being so calm, cool, collected, and so just real and understanding about everything that's going on really made me grow up real fast in that aspect of things.
Taylor Swift just exposed shocking truths about Blake Lively that nobody saw coming, and trust me, you're going to be stunned. Blake isn't showing one face, she's juggling many. From clueless depositions to ranting about smear campaigns with no proof, Taylor's silence alone revealed it all. Taylor Swift's August 2025 engagement to Travis Kelce wasn't just a fairy tale moment, it was a direct spotlight shift that left Blake Lively in the shadows. While Blake fumbled with lawsuits and clueless depositions, Taylor dropped the Instagram bomb, ring, dress, and all, turning her happiness into the sharpest roast Blake could imagine. And then comes the chef's kiss of it all, the timing. Taylor announced her engagement just as Blake Lively was circling her own birthday, August 25th, 1987. Imagine thinking you were about to bask in birthday wishes, only for Taylor Swift to drop a bombshell that wipes your moment off the map. Blake's little birthday posts on Instagram stories suddenly looked like recycled content from a discount bin compared to Taylor's engagement photos that broke the internet. It wasn't even a fight. Taylor didn't have to say Blake's name, didn't have to throw shade directly. The silence did the job. Taylor's happiness overshadowed Blake's day so completely, it felt like she was erased from the narrative. Engagements always beat birthdays. Always. And especially when it's Taylor Swift's engagement versus Blake Lively's tired Instagram reposts. But let's rewind for a second, because this wasn't some random fallout. Taylor and Blake were friends for nearly a decade. Nearly 10 years of photos, parties, little PR girl power moments, and then the cracks started showing. Let's not forget, Taylor wasn't even in Blake's wedding party. The same Blake who married Ryan Reynolds in a literal plantation wedding. Who does that? Out of all the venues, all the fancy estates, they chose a plantation. It's 2025 and we still have to roast that choice. That wasn't edgy, that wasn't romantic. It was tone deaf, plain and simple. And it says a lot about Blake's judgment. By 2023 and 2024, the friendship wasn't just cooling off. It was fractured beyond repair. Because instead of keeping her mess to herself, Blake dragged Taylor into her legal nightmares. Subpoenas started flying in late 2024, early 2025. Blake's side didn't just ruin her own image, she tried to pull Taylor into the mud by association. And when Taylor didn't play along, when she refused to take Blake's side, that was the clearest sign. If Taylor Swift, someone known for standing by friends, doesn't back you up, it's because she doesn't believe you. Taylor saw through it. That refusal exposed Blake more than any gossip blog ever could. And then we get to the most embarrassing chapter yet, Blake's deposition. July 31st, 2024, the date should haunt her. Blake, sitting there under her full legal name, Blake Ellender Reynolds, facing attorney Charles Babcock. And what happens? She gets asked the simplest question. Can you identify a defamatory statement made about you by Jed Wallace? That's it. That's the meat of her whole case. And her answer? I don't know a specific article. Seriously? That's like showing up to class without your homework and then acting surprised the teacher calls you out. You want to sue someone but you can't name a single article, a single post, a single video, zero receipts. And she's supposed to be the victim here? It gets worse. Her attorneys kept shouting objections left and right, like kids throwing tantrums to cover for the fact their client was drowning. Every time Blake stumbled, every time she looked clueless, they jumped in. But the damage was already done. She wasn't just unprepared, she was exposed as someone trying to build a whole legal war on thin air. She literally admitted she had no knowledge, no proof, nothing in writing, nothing to stand on. Taylor didn't even have to do a thing. She didn't have to tweet, didn't have to go live, didn't even have to whisper. Blake exposed herself under oath. And while Blake was fumbling in court, Taylor was baking bread with Travis, living in her love bubble. preparing to drop the biggest engagement news of the year. That contrast alone tells the story. Think about it. On one side, you've got Taylor Swift, calm, collected, thriving, rocking an antique diamond ring, and announcing her engagement in a way that makes headlines worldwide. On the other side, Blake Lively, confused in depositions, lawyers panicking with constant objections, and a reputation that's crumbling faster than her credibility. If that's not karma, I don't know what is. And it's not just about the law, it's about perception. Blake had the chance to at least look competent, to at least come across like she knew what she was talking about, but she couldn't even manage that. Saying, "I don't know a specific article," is the exact opposite of what someone confident and truthful would say. And it shows. She didn't just fail to prove her case. She failed to convince anyone she even understood her own accusations. Meanwhile, Taylor is out here casually erasing Blake's spotlight with one Instagram post. She didn't need to argue, didn't need to clap back, didn't need to issue a shady lyric. She just lived her life, leveled up, and let the world compare the two. And let's be honest, the comparison is brutal. Engagement photos with a $398 Ralph Lauren dress and an antique diamond ring versus courtroom meltdowns where you can't even name a single defamatory article. It's not a fair fight. Taylor won without even trying. That's the reality. Taylor's best revenge wasn't dragging Blake, wasn't even speaking on it. Her best revenge was thriving while Blake unraveled in public. And the receipts? Well, the receipts are all on Blake's side and not in the way she hoped. So let's talk about this so-called clandestine meltdown. Blake Lively sat in her deposition, scrambling for words, and out of nowhere, she decides to throw around the word clandestine. You know, to make herself sound like she's some sort of legal genius or spy thriller author. She claimed Jed Wallace's work was clandestine, basically secret, like he was running a CIA Black Ops mission against her. The problem? She admitted she only knew this because, wait for it, people told her, and from documents. That's it, not a shred of first-hand knowledge. No receipts, just vague whispers. Honestly, it sounded less like a deposition and more like a high schooler who didn't study for the test, tossing in big words to cover up for the fact they have no clue what's going on. And the irony here? Blake thought using an SAT word like clandestine would impress anyone. Instead, it made her look desperate, like a kid trying to win a spelling bee with words they don't understand. Compared to Taylor Swift, who can carve an entire career out of sharp, precise lyrics, Blake's fumbling felt amateur at best. Taylor doesn't even have to show up in the courtroom to win this argument. By staying silent, Taylor let the world watch Blake collapse under the weight of her own nonsense. That silence spoke louder than any statement ever could. And just when you thought Blake's situation couldn't get any more humiliating, here comes the godmother drama. Yeah, apparently Taylor Swift is now ready to revoke being the godmother to Blake's kids. Let that sink in. We're talking about James, Inez, and Betty, the same kids whose names Taylor literally immortalized on her 2020 folklore album. That was once considered one of the most personal, unbreakable ties between these two, and now Taylor wants nothing to do with it. Why? Because Blake burned the bridge so badly that even family-level obligations have become toxic baggage. Sources are saying Taylor feels she has no choice but to draw a line. Their friendship collapsed months ago, and Taylor doesn't want any lingering obligations that can be used against her later. And honestly, I don't blame her. Blake has been desperate, sending texts, voicemails, emails, trying to rekindle something that's clearly dead. Taylor ignored them all. And the silence says it all. The relationship is finished. No congratulations on Taylor's engagement, no warm public gesture, nothing. Just Blake wallowing in her own mess. And get this, the reporting suggests Taylor might even send a formal notice, through a mutual friend or even a lawyer, to make it clear she's stepping away from the godmother role. Imagine being such a liability that your former best friend considers drafting legal documents just to cut you off. That's not just a breakup, that's an eviction notice from someone's life. But of course, Blake's camp tries to flip the narrative. Suddenly, it's Blake who supposedly cut ties with Taylor, announcing Taylor won't be invited to her 38th birthday celebration. Oh please, this is classic spin. Like getting dumped and then telling everyone it was your idea. The fact that they even tried to frame Taylor as the bad friend here is laughable. If Taylor Swift, queen of loyalty and reputation, but won't back you, That says everything about your credibility. And while all of this is going on, people started digging into Blake and Ryan's Instagram followers. Turns out their engagement numbers are pathetic. Blake's at 0.1% to 0.5%, Ryan's at 0.1%. 75 to 95% of their followers are fake or inactive. Taylor, on the other hand, pulls millions of likes per post, sitting at 2% to 3.5% engagement, 20 times more than Ryan. So while Blake's clout is built on bot farms, Taylor's built on reality. Taylor taking back that godmother title is more than symbolic. It's exposure at its rawest. Blake isn't just losing a friend. She's losing legitimacy, credibility, and even the illusion of influence. Then we get to the absolute circus that was the production timeline of It Ends With Us. If you thought Blake looked lost in her deposition, just wait until you hear how clueless she was about her own film. Let's go down the timeline. Filming started in May 2023 in New Jersey, then got shut down in June because of the writers' strike. Okay, that part everyone knows. Production eventually resumed on January 5th, 2024, again in New Jersey, with a few minor shoots in California later on. And then came the big premiere on August 6th, 2024, at AMC Lincoln Square in New York City, followed by the official US release on August 9th, 2024. Clear, simple timeline, right? Wrong, because Blake couldn't even describe her own involvement properly. She literally admitted she wasn't handling principal photography. Fine, maybe that's normal, but then she tried to talk about extra footage, and instead of saying B-roll, she called it wide shots and inserts. Wide shots and inserts? Are you kidding me? She's been acting for 21 years, since 2004, and she doesn't know the most basic industry term? Even rookie film students know what B-roll is. Meanwhile, Taylor is out here running billion-dollar world tours with military-level precision, and Blake can't even name the basic parts of her own movie. It's like comparing an architect to someone who still draws stick figures. And then comes the biggest embarrassment of all, the so-called astroturfing disaster. Blake accused Wallace's side of running a coordinated astroturfing campaign against her. Sounds dramatic, right? Except when pressed to explain, she defined it clumsily as inorganic conversations. That's it. That was her grand definition. She couldn't even explain the term properly. Then when asked who exactly was behind it, she couldn't give names, couldn't provide proof. She just leaned on hearsay from people like Jen and Melissa. That's not evidence, that's gossip. But Blake didn't stop there. She piled on the melodrama, claiming she feared being buried reputationally, and even dragged in this bizarre story about hearing a "two dead bodies" comment connected to Hamas and Israel. Suddenly, her deposition sounded less like a legal proceeding and more like a badly written soap opera. It was paranoia on full display, and she didn't have a single receipt to back it up. Instead of looking like a victim, she looked completely unhinged. Meanwhile, Taylor's just chilling in her love bubble, baking sourdough, letting Blake spiral out of control. And then we hit the most brutal part of all, Taylor's refusal to defend her. Let's be real, Taylor and Blake had nearly a decade of friendship. That's a lot of history, a lot of trust. But when the lawsuits hit and Blake wanted backup, Taylor didn't say a word. She didn't tweet, she didn't post, she didn't issue a single statement in Blake's favor. The silence was deafening and it spoke volumes. Because if you're Taylor Swift and you don't stand up for someone you've known for 10 years, that means you don't believe them, period. And it wasn't just silence. Legal teams even subpoenaed Taylor. They wanted her in the mess. And then suddenly, the subpoena was dropped with the vague statement that they got what they wanted. What does that mean? Did Taylor provide something that weakened Blake's case? Did she quietly confirm the extortion attempts? Nobody knows the details, but the fact that Blake's side didn't push harder says everything. Taylor didn't just stay out of the drama. She may have handed over information that left Blake's team scrambling. And that's the thing, Taylor's silence was louder than all of Blake's courtroom rambling combined. While Blake was whining about clandestine this, astroturfing that, and imaginary smear campaigns, Taylor was living her best life and exposing Blake without saying a single word. If your best friend of 10 years won't vouch for you in your darkest hour, that's the clearest exposure you can get. Blake wasn't just abandoned, she was silently roasted by the very absence of Taylor's support. Blake Lively didn't need enemies because she was her own worst PR nightmare. When It Ends With Us started promotion, you'd think she would have been professional, kept things clean, and made sure her movie looked like a win. Nope. She decided to go full self-destruct mode. First mistake? Excluding Justin Baldoni, her co-star and director, from red carpet events. Who does that? You're starring in the same film, but instead of showing unity, she iced him out. The press didn't need a memo. They saw the tension instantly, and the headlines wrote themselves. Negative press poured in like a flood, and Blake was right in the middle of it. And just when things couldn't get more embarrassing, Ryan Reynolds jumped into the circus. Out of nowhere, he claimed he wrote the rooftop scene in the movie. Seriously, what was the point of that? Instead of helping, it just stirred more controversy, like he wanted to fan the flames for his own attention. Imagine your husband inserting himself into your professional drama with an unneeded brag. The whole thing made Blake look less like a serious actress and more like part of a messy Hollywood sideshow. Then came the social media disaster. Blake unfollowed Justin Baldoni, and it wasn't just a quiet click. The internet exploded. Fans noticed instantly, and it turned into a frenzy of speculation. Why would she do that? What was she trying to prove? It only confirmed what everyone already suspected, that Blake was petty, bitter, and incapable of handling conflict like an adult. Instead of building hype for her movie, she built a narrative that she was feuding with the very person who could have made the project shine. And let's not forget her publicist, Leslie Sloan, trying to save the sinking ship. Sloan leaked stories to the Daily Mail, pointing fingers at everyone else, blaming others for Blake's fallout. But it backfired spectacularly. People aren't stupid. They could see the spin for what it was, and it only made Blake look even more manipulative. She wanted to control the story, but instead she engineered her own downfall. Meanwhile, Taylor Swift didn't lift a finger. She didn't need to. Blake was busy burning down her own image, while Taylor was busy living her best life, planning a wedding and topping charts. But the mess didn't stop there. In late 2025, Blake decided to go after Perez Hilton. She subpoenaed him, claiming he was paid to smear her, as if Perez Hilton needs a paycheck to spill tea. The guy built his career on drama. Perez dodged the bullet temporarily. He avoided handing over materials, scoring a short-term legal win. But the real story wasn't his response. The real story was Blake exposing herself again, because here's where it gets ugly. A TikTok theory by Cool Mom Jamie went viral, and it actually made sense. The theory? Blake was projecting. She assumed Perez was paid to write hit pieces because that's exactly the kind of thing she or her team might do. Think about it, Blake and Ryan are a Hollywood power couple. They have access, connections, publicists on speed dial. If anyone has the means to influence press coverage, it's them. So by accusing Perez, Blake was basically telling on herself. And that's the roast right there. She tried to frame Perez as shady, but all she did was highlight how shady she looked. Meanwhile, Taylor's team stayed squeaky clean. No lawsuits, no subpoenas, no accusations of pay-for-play media. The contrast couldn't be clearer. Taylor kept her hands clean, while Blake's were covered in the dirt she threw at others. It's like one of those moments where you point at someone and scream liar while holding a stack of forged papers. By accusing Perez, Blake exposed who really plays dirty, and it wasn't Taylor. And this brings us to the brutal side-by-side comparison of their careers. Blake has been acting for 21 years, since 2004. You'd think that kind of time in Hollywood would make her headlines about her projects, her craft, her roles. But no, now her name is tied to lawsuits, depositions, subpoenas, and PR disasters. That's her legacy. 2 decades in the game, and she's remembered for courtroom drama instead of cinema. Taylor, on the other hand, is untouchable. She fought to take control of her masters, broke streaming records, and ran the Eras Tour, which turned into a billion-dollar cultural phenomenon. While Blake was fumbling through depositions, Taylor was building an empire. While Blake was whining about smear campaigns, Taylor was becoming part of a global power couple with Travis Kelce. The difference is staggering. Taylor's engagement ring was a one-of-a-kind antique cut diamond, carefully designed and dripping with symbolism. Blake's big spotlight moment? Sitting in court, spewing vague accusations without evidence. One woman flaunts timeless diamonds, the other flaunts dime store excuses. And let's be real here. One woman is building empires that will outlive her, while the other is building drama that nobody will care about in a year. Taylor is headlining history books, and Blake is headlining gossip blogs. The roast writes itself. Now, let's close this with what really sealed the deal. Taylor Swift's ultimate exposure of Blake Lively. And the wild part, she didn't even have to try. By refusing to publicly back Blake, Taylor sent the loudest message possible. She didn't believe her, she didn't trust her, and she wasn't about to get dragged into Blake's swamp. That decision exposed Blake's lack of credibility more than any court document could. The timing of it all was perfect. August 2025, Taylor announced her engagement, just as Blake was trying to squeeze some attention out of her birthday. Swift up, Lively down. The symbolism couldn't have been clearer, and when you put it all together, the deposition where Blake admitted she had no proof, the subpoena circus with Perez Hilton, the PR meltdown with Justin Baldoni, and the failed spin from her publicist, it paints one picture. Blake is unprepared, paranoid, and petty. Taylor didn't have to attack. She didn't have to tweet. She didn't have to drop a shady lyric. All she had to do was keep winning. Her silence, her success, and her perfect timing roasted Blake more savagely than words ever could. While Blake spiraled, Taylor soared, and that's the sharpest exposure of all.